I'm Jerry Agar in for Ezra Levant, and he'll have a special report for you on Monday. The gay community and the left are in a panic over a recent court decision in Toronto that suggests that gay marriages performed in Canada for people who don't live in this country, people who live in jurisdictions where gay marriage is not legal, were never married. Check out this poll and the hysteria CBC released today on the issue, with 49% of voters saying they believe same-sex marriage is now at risk in Canada. Let's get some legal input from family law expert Andrew Feldstein. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What's been your initial reaction to this legal decision?
Well, first of all, it's not a legal decision.
Okay.
It was a lawyer by the Justice Department who made an argument before a judge.
Okay.
No judge has ruled on this decision yet.
So the judge hasn't said, yeah, you're right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in fact, I think it's a very weak argument.
All right.
And I'm surprised the Justice Department would even bring such an argument. There are two reasons that this case was brought to light. One of them created a lot of excitement in the media, and the other one makes sense. And in order to get a divorce in Ontario, you have to achieve one thing, or one of the things you need to achieve is that you need to live in Ontario for 1 year before you can apply to get a divorce.
Same in every province?
Same in every province. And the challenge for some same-sex people who were married in Canada but don't live here in any Canadian province, they want to come back and get divorced in Canada, but the court can say, sorry, you haven't lived in a province for 1 year, and if you want to be eligible to get a divorce here, then you have to live in one province of Ontario for at least one continuous year. That argument to me would make perfectly good sense, and I could understand why the Justice Minister would want to advance that argument based on the law.
Okay.
The second argument that's created a lot of excitement in the media is this concept that if the marriage wasn't valid in the place where people were living, then it's not valid here. And from a legal standpoint, I don't believe that makes any sense. And I also think it's an immoral argument. People came here, they got married, they got their marriage certificates, they think they're married, and quite frankly, they are married.
Okay, but the wording then could be, you're married if you're here in Canada, and if you want to live here and follow all of the specifications in our law to eventually arrive at a point where you want to apply for a divorce, fine. We can't do anything about Florida. We can't do anything about the UK, both jurisdictions that are in question in this particular decision. So I guess effectively in Florida, you're not married.
Well, quite frankly, I think that's irrelevant to a Canadian government,
right,
what your status is in Florida. I think what's relevant is what's their status here. And the marriage and divorce is strictly under the federal government's power, not a provincial power. So they can deal with the fact that, okay, we're going to grant a divorce. But I don't believe that a court here would ever be able to deal with any other issues, because as you put it, if somebody lives in the state of Florida, that's the right place to deal with any custody issues, any support issues, any property issues. So what they're really here for is simply seeking a divorce.
Is it essentially then a symbolic thing they're looking for? Because all of those things you just mentioned, all those legal aspects cannot be determined by Canada or Florida.
Some people could say it's symbolic, and some people would say it's important. There are a lot of my clients who enter into separation agreements before their divorce that deal with every issue. And they get the divorce because for them it feels better to be divorced, and it's a statement that their marriage is at an end. So I can understand why these people would like the opportunity to be divorced, but the question is it something that the Government of Canada should be dealing with? It seems to me, from my reading of what the Justice Minister has been saying, they are going to make an exception to allow foreigners to get divorced in Canada if their home jurisdiction doesn't allow them to get divorced, providing they were originally married here.
So essentially they'd be allowed something that a Canadian citizen can't have in Canadian courts.
That would be a fair way of characterizing it, except that a Canadian couple can get divorced here and doesn't face that same challenge of having nowhere that they can get divorced.
Is the separation of property realistically quite different from actual divorce?
It's a completely different legislation. The federal government, as I said, deals with marriage and divorce. So they can deal with issues of divorce, custody, access, and child and spousal support. The provincial government deals with property, and that would be dealt with in Ontario under the Family Law Act.
Okay, so then somebody like this lesbian couple who are not considered married in the jurisdictions they live in now could be looking for the divorce for a symbolic reason, or one of them may want to come back to Canada someday and marry somebody else, in which case they would have had to dealt with the previous Canadian marriage.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with you. And then if the place they end up living in, whether it's the current state or a different state, allows for marriage to take place between same-sex couples, they also need a divorce because they would be facing the risk of being in a polygamous relationship.
Well, that was an argument that was made to me when I talked about it on my radio show, is if I went to a country where you were allowed to marry numerous women and came back with, I've got 6 wives, the government would say, no, you don't.
I tend to agree with you on that, but we do know there is a case in BC dealing with polygamous wives in the criminal court that's working its way up to the
Where do you think
BC
that's going
Court
to
of
go?
Appeal. My gut feeling is nowhere, but I could easily be wrong because judges can surprise you.
Andrew Feldstein, I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in.